Rappin' with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin' with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So, on today's live stream, I welcome Andrew Sandler, who has a 17,000-gallon reef tank in his house. Andrew, man, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, and my pleasure.
So before we start chatting with Andrew, and I see a whole bunch of you folks are already in the chat, and I welcome you as always to leave your comments or questions. It's a great opportunity here to ask Andrew far away at him to see how he tends to this massive tank and all the other tanks he has in his house. But before we start chatting with Andrew, I do want to thank the sponsors of the show, Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. Really appreciate them supporting the show, as well as you folks out there supporting it as you have in the past and tuning in. Please spread the word. And don't forget to hit the like button so more people can find this live stream. And I will do my best to keep track of your questions in the chat. So, Andrew, man, we were talking before the show. I've been watching a lot of videos of your setup, the 17,000-gallon aquarium. It blows my mind. I've got a whole bunch of questions for you, but how did you get to this point? How did you start your reef keeping journey?
The same way most people start, right? Someone takes you to an aquarium store and you get 10-gallon tank with live bearers, and then, you know, a few years later you have a 20-gallon tank with maybe some African cichlids. This is my grandfather, basically. And you're riding your bike to the aquarium on crazy streets, which you can't imagine that my parents actually allowed me to ride my bike. I don't think they even knew. Used to put the fish in the baskets.
Wow.
40-gallon, 55-gallon discus. And then before college, I went to saltwater. I took a few-year hiatus in college and then sort of came back to it and went sort of crazy.
You went big.
I went big. I lived in Manhattan for a few years. Got kicked out of 2 buildings.
Because of your reef tanks?
One because of I had a flood. Yeah, actually my RO gasket blew in the middle of the night, and we woke up to a super call with water up to my ankles in the whole apartment.
Wow. I've kept a reef tank in an apartment, but it was, I think the biggest one I had was like a 90-gallon reef tank. But geez, yeah, all right.
This was filling in a 55-gallon brute thing, and the pressure blew and whatever, and it was squirting everywhere all night.
I want to thank ACI Aquaculture for that super chat. Thank you both, Chris and Amanda Meckley there, sending some Christmas cheers to ReefBum. All right, man, and got a couple of beers glasses clanking there. Yeah, all right. So you, So let's talk about this 17,000-gallon tank. Let's dig into this thing a little bit. How long has this thing been up and running, and how long did it take you to plan this out and build it?
So the tank is just a little over 2 years from the first fish.
Okay.
And we believe from planning until that first fish, and again, there was a lot of the 2 leaks. One was actually leaking while I cycled. I had to drain the whole thing.
You're kidding me. You drained 17,000 gallons out of that tank?
Twice.
Twice? Jeez.
But we think, we think 6 years between planning, plumbing, construction, fixing, ready to go. You know, I added extensions to the house and put the roof. Had to take the roof off.
You had to take the roof off to get the tank in, or just to
put the vats in, to put a lot of the sub basement vats in.
I'm gonna play the video while we talk of the display tank, and I want to thank Rashid from Stories Reef for providing this video. If you haven't checked out Rashid's YouTube channel, Stories Reef, check it out. But he's visited you a few times, and he's taken several videos of this impressive tank. So yeah, now before the show we were also talking about all the fish in this tank, and I was asking you a question in terms of how many fish you think is in this tank, and I think you were guesstimating between 300 to 500, 500 plus fish.
Somewhere along the line, when I asked Yeltsin how many gobies, little sand gobies, went in from quarantine, and he said to me, I don't know, I lost track. We stopped counting. So we literally are not sure. Although if I spend time on a species list, I probably could get a guess.
See, man, you should every time you guys put some fish in, you should have taken inventory.
You're right.
You know. So all right, there's and so one of the other funny things I wanted to mention here is about Rashid's videos is that he, and we're not using the audio from his videos here, but every now and then he would say, "Holy moly." And that was the comments that he would make in terms of looking at the display tank and also the equipment. And I certainly see, now looking at the video, that this tank is worthy of the holy moly phrase, because it's jaw dropping. It really is. And we'll show the equipment video too. And the equipment video that I just took some snippets from Rashid's videos, and it's just little it doesn't paint the whole picture. I don't think it paints in broad strokes in terms of what you got going on with this system. How complicated of a system is this? I know a lot of reef keepers that I talk to talk about they strive to make their systems as simple as possible. Simplicity is always one of the keys in terms of trying to have optimized success for reef keeping, but this can't be a simple system, right? I mean, this is something that has a lot of thought, a lot of automation put into it.
Yeah, there's a basically an industrial. We hired an industrial automation water plant guy that built us a custom PLC, and then wrote millions of lines of code. And it's the kind of code that he comes and sits there and tests it so you can get to see what things are doing. You can't do it remotely. So these were a lot of hours, almost a year and a fraction of computer code.
And how do you plan something like this out? Did you have somebody that you leaned on in terms of a consultant, an advisor? Did you go out and tour public aquariums? Because that's what you really have there, Andrew, is you've got an aquarium like what the public aquariums have on display. That's
all the above. And Jonathan at Country Critters basically wanted to build me a bulletproof situation. And so, it was a no-cost object issue, and we just built the best. Obviously, there was some switches and changes made along the way, and upgrades, but yeah, I mean, it was basically designed so that I could actually go away on weekends and watch it from the computer and monitor things. And that being said, there's somebody here 24 hours anyway. So,
right, we were talking before, and you essentially have an alert system set up. Not only that, you're not the only person getting these alerts, but there's several other people getting the alerts. So this tank system is monitored 24/7.
Four of us get the computer and the alerts.
I'm just looking at some of the comments here in the chat. Eric Charland says it's like Disney World. You learn something different about it every time you're there. Robert King's Clownfish. Hey, Andrew, looking good.
Hey guys.
Eric is saying again, it's better than a public aquarium, and the tour guide's better too.
I mean, maybe I set a new bar for the public aquariums. That would be great if I did.
Blue Reef is saying, is this the store in Long Island? Country Critters is in Long Island, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Jonathan has big experience with running a store and whatever, but he had to hire engineers and flow pipe specialists and soil specialists and all sorts of engineers. There must have been 10, 15 engineers that sort of worked on this project. We spent a lot of time with Joe and Laura at Long Island Aquarium, going through what worked, what didn't work, and so forth.
I'm showing the video now of the equipment, and this is, again, thanks to Rashid and Stories Reef. We're looking at a whole bunch of things. I'll just kind of like tell you what we're seeing here since you're not watching it on YouTube, but it looks to me like we've got a whole bunch of reactors in there. I think there's a sulfate reactor that you have in there, right? And I'll ask you a little bit about that. Protein skimmers, 2 gigantic protein skimmers for this 17,000 gallon tank.
Yeah, two big MRCs. We changed that we had one big Bermuda, and we changed it to 2 MRCs, and we got to double the water flow through. Wow.
I think there's a couple other reactors, maybe some nitrate reactors I'm looking at there. You've
nitrate, GFO reactor. We're running a carbon reactor, believe it or not, which I debate all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Between the ozone and the carbon, you get a little head and lateral line on some of the fish. Right. I've tried changing carbons now a few different times, and we'll see.
So I see there's a big honking UV sterilizer. You've got a whole big QT system set up there for not only fish, but also for corals. This is a 2-level equipment room, right? So you're going down to the second level.
Yeah, the engine room's in the sump.
Engine room, so that's where the sump is. That's we're also looking at 10,000 gallons of makeup water. Is that what I understand? Jeez.
and we can make 10,000 gallons a day of RO if we push.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Holy moly.
We also can heat that water up from 60 to 80 in about 20 minutes.
Right, and I don't think we've seen it yet, but there's a separate room where we've got heaters in that whole. It's
the boiler.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like it's got its own
natural gas.
Wow. I think we're looking at part of the sump there. Eric is saying there's 2 UV sterilizers. You have 2 UV sterilizers? Yeah.
One's for the office tank upstairs. The other one, there's only one big one for the main system. It's 10 bulbs, 375 watts each bulb.
Then we're looking at outside, and it looks like a little courtyard area there. You've got a whole bunch of generators, and my understanding is you've got one generator that backs up all the fish tanks.
Maybe 1 1/4 or 3/4.
1 1/4. And there was also, I think, some chillers out there.
Dectron, the anti-humidification in white, and then the greens are the train chillers, the condensers.
I see Rashid is saying that you use ESV salt. That's not a cheap salt.
No, and
it's an awesome salt, though. I used to use it.
Sometimes I want to take Bob's stuff and bury it in a bunker, and like Terminator guns, to have extra around. But he delivers to me, or guys deliver to me. Every 2 weeks, we get about 12,000 gallons of liquids.
Did he have to open up a separate plant just for you?
No, but he gets up very early to make his donuts. We use the bulk sodium chloride and magnesium sulfate that he recommended. So I don't use his stuff, but we use someone else's stuff.
So Reefkeeper's asking, does he have his own power plant? Can't imagine what it costs to supply electricity to this tank. That
number I have given out, so I'm okay giving it out. First of all, they wouldn't let me have phase 3 power in the neighborhood, so I had to go phase 1 and do converters and VFDs. And we needed 2 800 amp services, separates. And prior to the tank, my electric bill running the house was probably 4,000 a month, maybe.
Prior to the big tank?
And prior to the opening any
Okay.
tank, yeah. And on a average basis, the utility bill now is 16,000 a month. So I'm just guessing that the tank was 10, 12-ish.
Well, I don't feel so bad about my utility bill now.
Right. Or your salt bill.
It's a hell of a lot cheaper than yours, Andrew. All right, where do we start here in terms of kind of digging a little bit deep? Sulfate reactor. I've never heard of a sulfate reactor. What's a sulfate reactor for?
So you put pellets of sulfur chips or round little nuggets, and you run the water extremely slow through it, and it basically acts as a denitrator. The bacteria, denitrating bacteria, grows on the pellets, on the sulfur. And you run an ORP probe and you run it negative. Like you open the thing up, it smells like rotten eggs. Ooh. A little bit. And they clog and they're a pain in the neck, but they really work unbelievable. We have 2 in there. We're actually going to upgrade to a huge MRC one. That's the next project.
A bigger sulfate reactor. One
big MRC one with a separate chamber for aragonite. Once it goes from the low pH into, it's sort of like a calcium reactor. This MRC one will have an automatic blow system so we can dislodge the mum and collect it in a bag or whatever instead of it clogging all the time. Right now, these sulfur reactors, I would say, are taking up, I don't know, maybe 25% of our time dealing with these things.
Wow. Yeah, that is a time suck.
They're very, very temperamental. The ORP probes, we like to run at -2 to 300, negative ORP. They get clogged, it goes to -400, and then you run it too fast, it only starts going positive, and like that.
So you need to run the sulfate reactor as well as a couple of nitrate reactors. So you got a huge need to remove that organic waste in that tank, along with the 2 skimmers.
We're basically, we feed these fish 4 or 5 times a day. We're feeding 5 pounds of fish. I think the sulfur reactors are already undersized, and my nitrates are not getting above 15 ppm.
Oh, really?
Right, so I believe I'll be able to get to. I'm actually worried about the opposite. The next
getting too low.
Yeah, but I'll feed it if I need to.
So we didn't see a lot of shots of corals in the tank. Is I would imagine like further down in the bottom of that tank. I mean, how tall is the tank? How many feet?
So it's 9 feet from the bottom to the top, but it's buried 2 feet underground.
Right. So it's recessed a couple of feet.
Recessed 2 feet.
And what are you using to light the tank? What are the lights?
Maxspect commercial LEDs, 1,000 watters in the front, and about two 1,000s and about 11 500s. And they're the 14K, and we have some 20Ks mixed in. And we're getting par at the bottom, like depending on where it's sort of the angles that's the issue. It's not the straight down a light hanging. I can get 300-400 on the bottom.
Really?
But if it's angled and you're on a vertical ledge, it might be less.
So these are LEDs, or did I misunderstand it? You've got they're
LEDs.
They're all LEDs. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I've had a couple of folks on the show that run displays in public aquariums, and it sounded to me like a lot of these folks, a lot of public aquariums are still using metal halides, and I and just in talking with them, it sounds like obviously LEDs is a much more it's a technology that a lot of folks are using, and metal halides. I mean, I use metal halides in my tank. I've been using metal halides for years and years and years. But at some point in time, I guess you got to wonder how much longer they will be making bulbs for those kind of fixtures. And
I still have about 50 of them in my garage, still brand new. We're actually going to run a clam tank, and we're going to use metal halide. The problem with this one was, unlike Joe's tank riverhead where you can stand up in there and walk on a catwalk. Here you gotta like sort of crawl. I only have about 3.5 foot of clearance, so it would get too hot and your back would cook.
Right. So that's not an option for you then, Halides.
Was not an option.
How are your corals doing in that tank? You know, I didn't see a lot.
They're doing great, exceptionally great. Although they're not loving the hydrogen peroxide I'm dosing now for this little ick problem.
Right. You want to.
Which we can talk about whenever you want.
Yeah.
Whenever you want to.
If you want to, that could be a good segue. You want to talk about you. So you've got an issue with ick right now, and you've so we already talked about this quarantine system you have for the fish, and you've got the UV sterilizer for the big tank. How do you think it got through?
First of all, I don't think it was an accident that the bulbs are exactly 1 year old already. Okay, and one's out, so I only have 9 instead of 10.
No,
I don't think it's an accident.
Yeah. We
change them every Christmas, and they like to change them when I'm away on vacation because I get too nervous when they're off. So I don't know. We put in some new fish. We put in some new coral. Nobody stands up and raises their hand. I didn't see anything. Could have been cross-contamination. It could have been an cystic thing on a rock that a coral came on. Maybe 45 days was not enough. Maybe there was a white dot on something that I didn't see. Like who knows? And sort of like COVID, right? I mean, once you got it,
it's invisible.
I mean, unless you know the person you got infected from, it almost doesn't matter.
So what is your normal QT process in terms of fish? So you've got the QT tank set up there. What do you do in terms of medicating and then observing? What's your kind of procedure there for QTing?
We do almost everything except microwave. but the base soup is either the copper power or chloroquine phosphate. We use a lot of chloroquine on certain fish that we realize it just does better. And then after, depending on what kind of fish it is, there are times I move them out after 2 weeks. There are times I let them go to 35 days. If I move them out, they go into another sterilized system. If I don't, they start prosy 2 to 3 times, the last week. And we start feeding Metro and fenbendazole in the food. And usually then they go into another watch system for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I actually think there's more risk in that 2 week no med watch system because that's where you can get some cross contamination. But by the way, I'm also doing a substantial amount now more formalin baths, either before they go into quarantine or after. There's too many prosy-resistant flukes around and stuff where, ectoparasites, what the prosy's too weak.
I commend you, Andrew, because I have never had a quarantine tank set up for fish. I have like a coral quarantine tank, but in terms of my reef keeping career, I've always just tried to get my fish at reputable places, but that doesn't always that's a really very risky proposition. If you do get it from somebody that does go through the kind of protocol that you're talking about. I mean, there are some vendors out there that do that, and and
I'm friendly with all of them.
Yeah.
And I've gotten fish from all of them, and most of the time, I still put them in 2 weeks observation. They go in the back.
Yeah. I mean, I've had like ick on fish and what have you, but I've been fortunate, I guess. I've never had a situation where my whole fish population just really had ick and got wiped out. I guess I've had issues with some sort of disease, and I lost a bunch of fish mysteriously. But what's going on in your tank in terms of that ick? I mean, are you losing fish, or are you just okay? Good.
No, zero deaths, zero. And I would say it's only on 5% of the fish, 10% of the fish. But I see flashing and scratching on the tangs. I see the dots. On the smooth scale fish that seem to be bothered the most, irritating, more of an irritation. You know, when I saw it, I was just like, oh no. I mean, you know, you start going through like, what are you going to do? This coral.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the nightmare of all time. But we're managing it right now, and we're managing it. I'll sort of tell you the sort of things we're doing. One is we started putting diatomaceous earth in the pool filters in the sump room. So we usually just have 4 big pleated cartridges. We change every 4 or 5 days. Now we put in the diatom powder. It's 1 micron, and we had to actually have a separate new check valve made so that the diatom powder doesn't go back into the tank when you shut it off, which is another issue because then it just recirculates again. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we cranked up the ozone pretty good. I raised my ORP. I usually run like 350, but I'm over 400 now. And just about 4 or 5 days ago, we started adding hydrogen peroxide, the heavy duty stuff, 32%.
Yeah. Wow.
Doing it between 3 and 4 times a day. And, there are issues with it. Like I can see some of the corals starting to...
Not happy.
Yeah, they're not, the color's not there as much. It's starting to lighten up a little bit, right? We may have to lower the lights. I'm going to probably lower them again a little bit. What else do I see? Oh, you know what happens? The ORP drops like a rock from 400 to 170 after
peroxide.
Yeah. And so we don't know whether, like, it takes half a day for the ozone to crank on to get it back up. And I don't know whether I'm oxidizing too much or not oxidizing too much or what to run the ozone at because it's on all day, cranked.
Rashid is wondering if the diatom filter be better running out of the main tank to get the free floaters. Just a thought.
Yeah, it would be great. We as opposed to the sump and a loop. But that would require a whole new engine and plumbing and piping behind the tank. And we wanted to keep the water downstairs. But yeah, it's something we talked about.
What?
Oh, by the way, there's also a huge sand filter in the tank.
Yeah, talk about that. What's a sand filter?
It looks like a big pool oval dome. And instead of sand, it's filled with glass inert media. It's just like these little beads, and that can filter, pretty close to like 5-10 microns. And it has to be backwashed though, it gets dirty. So we are changing, just on the backwash alone, to backwash that into my cesspools, that's 1,000 gallons a week. Without doing a water change. I mean, sometimes we'll just keep going and doing the water change.
What kind of water change do you do and how often?
So we do the 1,000 gallons once a week, and I would say every other week we'll go between 25 and 4.
Wow, that's a big water change. David Waters is asking what your pH is in that tank. What's your range?
I find the biggest drop is when it's a storm, a low pressure storm and raining outside. But other than that, it's between 8 and 8.2. It doesn't change much. We drip Kalk water at night. Actually, we don't drip it. The evaporation is 45 gallons a day. So we actually have a 45-gallon jug, and we make it fresh every day with the Kalk. And literally at 7, 8 o'clock at night, we just open the valve and let it flow in for a few hours overnight.
So yeah, that's interesting. I use Kalk washer as well. So is that getting stirred up at all, or is it just basically getting mixed and then just?
We stir it up manually and close the lid, and then it's a one day batch, and it gets made the next day.
And what is your alkalinity and calcium run in that tank?
We run it. Well, the ESV salt runs about 9.2, 9.3. Right. So that's about where we run it. We'll let it drift down to 8.8 or something like that zip code. But believe it or not, my calcium reactor is not even on yet, even with this amount of coral.
Right. We've
been using the cork and 2-part.
Oh.
And okay, I mean, so far so good, and it's so good that like I'm debating whether or not I go that route. I'm a little afraid of the pH thing.
If you turn the calcium reactor on, yeah. How many gallons of 2-part are you using a day?
Only 700 mils a day, broken up by about 4 doses.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, that's not a lot.
No, and I think it's just the amount of coral and the volume of water. I mean, I keep asking Yeltsin, like, is it going down? Is it going? No, we tested at different times during the day. No. I assume, as you know, we'll probably double that at some point, but right now it's not that much.
Is your goal to have more corals in that tank? And you know, what is your desire to have, like a mixed reef type of tank? Are you more into the sticks? What's your kind of vision for the tank in terms of corals?
I'm good. This was designed for fish first and find the coral they don't eat. Okay? I mean, I have a wolf pack of semi-Lavardis butterflies in here that taste everything. There are angels. The angels aren't too bad, but the raccoon butterflies, I mean, there are things that just get chowed right away. And now we're starting to learn what gets chowed and what doesn't. You can take a piece of stylo that they're going to chow that, and they don't. And then you take the same piece that is a little thinner, but it's bird's nest, and then it's gone. Like, who knows why? I have no idea. The smooth skin acros seem best. They leave them alone. Monty's, no issue with at all.
You have...
Then upstairs, you know, we're going to have a 2500 upstairs where it will be reversed, where the corals come first, and I don't want to fish above this size in the tank, and it will all be reef safe.
Oh, awesome! So that's another 2,500 gallon tank you're going to have your folks tend to there, and you tend to. So
we need help.
We need help.
We need help.
We were talking before the show. You have 13 separate systems in that house.
We think if you include the coral vats and the quarantine systems, and they're all separate systems, and they all suck up alkalinity, whatever. Yeah, we're 13 now.
That's a lot to keep track of. That is a.
It is. I mean, you know, Yeltsin just goes batty sometimes.
So let's get back to the fish. Your prized possession is a Picasso tang, correct? Or is it
one of few prizes?
So what would you say are your top fish in terms of your favorites?
I mean, that Picasso tang, it was the first one collected. I'm sure there are more out there. Just, you know, you got to get to Jurassic Park a little more and find some more. But there is one in here. Actually, it's not in here. It's in quarantine. We actually caught him the other day because I didn't like the way he looked.
Hold on. How do you catch a fish out of that tank?
Two ways. The easiest way is a crab trap that folds out like a flat thing, and when you pull, and you feed nori in it, and when you pull the string, it closes in a box, and you pull the fish up. We caught a whole bunch of them like that. The other way is send divers, but sometimes that's not successful. You need two divers. They circle around. They're too fast for the nets.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. I mean, you've got a decent amount of rock in that tank, right? So there's a lot of hiding spots.
they just circle around and they're too fast for you. So there's one fish in there that doesn't exist in nature. It was a Poma Labs freak experiment.
Oh, really?
It wasn't even an experiment. It was an accident. They kept a blue line, some blue lines in with some conspics, and this weird baby popped up. And it's a hybrid blue line conspic, and it's the only one of its kind.
And you got it ready to rock and roll.
It was in the tank for 2 years, and it was being bothered by this. Even though I couldn't see the dots, I could see it was swimming in the flow and swimming a little weird, so I pulled it, and it's in chloroquine phosphate in the back, doing just fine.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then there's a whole bunch of Personalis angels in here from Hawaii, which I love keeping.
Well, it's obvious in terms of that fish collection. Now, I didn't see did I miss them? Maybe are there a lot of Anthias in that tank or no? There are a lot.
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. Which is, you know, when you think about what do you have to do just in case if you have to medicate this system. We have a plan. You can either remove the fish or remove the coral.
Yeah.
Okay. But you would still have to use chloroquine phosphate and not copper. And the Anthias can't deal with the chloroquine, so you'd have to get the Anthias out and treat them separately anyway. So that's something that you know, along with the urchins and the snails, and you'd be diving for, you know, critters probably for days. Probably.
Yeah, and so how many pounds of rock do you have in that tank, would you say?
20,000 pounds of Marco rock.
20,000 pounds of Marco rock. Whoa, that's a lot of rock. So you would have to take the rock out too, because if you do that kind of medication,
you can't even do that. They're cemented.
Oh, really? So
I mean, you could take a small boulder from the bottom, but the main structure is cemented.
So Hondo 898 is asking, mind talking about the results of the recent fish ick tests?
Yeah. One fish vet came here and said cryptocarin, and Yeltsin went to drive about 6 fish to TSM today. Got back, and I got a report that it looks like cryptocarin or some sort of ciliate. Like at that point, whatever. Like if it's some weird, it looks like a very strange. It looks like a smaller species. It looks like a different kind of species of ick, which, you know, I was worried about this Tahitian bug or whatever. There's a new bug around a ciliate.
Yep.
Copper resistant. But I mean, at the end of the day, what's the difference? I'm going to manage this thing. I'm going to put the new UV bulbs in. We're feeding it Metro. We're feeding the fish Metro, a big cake every day. 10% Metro. I don't know if it's doing anything. Peroxide, the diatom, the ozone, the UV bulbs will be here within days. It doesn't look like it's spreading.
Good.
Just, you know, just managing this thing. And we don't know at this point whether at this point in the future, everything in the back is held now. We're not adding a new fish in. That would be stupid. I'd get transmission right away. So everything in the back is being held. There's black tangs back there. Like that would be the dumbest thing I did. We're debating whether or not we actually want to take this water and expose the fish in the back to build up an immunity, even if we had to treat it. And so it no longer becomes a sterile quarantine. It becomes managed situation.
Right.
And we'll figure that out as we go along.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty big undertaking, though, Andrew.
It does, but, you know, so they get some dots, and if they start doing poorly, I'll just dump some chloroquine and phosphate in there and treat them.
So another thing that we should talk about in terms of the system and the way it's all set up, and, you know, you've got the quarantine process, and you've got, you know, a very intricate system in terms of all the different equipment. But Is there anything that you would have done differently in terms of the design of this system and the tank 2 years down the road?
And that's about the amount of time it took to sort of realize what we could have done differently. So there wasn't enough mechanical at first. The sand filter only goes through about a third goes through the sand filter, a third of the flow, and a third goes through the skimmers. But we were talking about adding what are those things called? They use them in koi ponds. With the metal that spins. No, it's like I'll get the name of it. But so we added a bunch of pool filters on a loop, like I told you. Cartridges, supplemental. The one big thing that we sort of deal with now is flow.
And I'm assuming you've got closed loops in that tank?
Closed loops, and that's one of the mistakes I think we made. So we have this closed loop made so that we could change intakes and outtakes and make them either way and close some off. I mean, I get fish and stuff stuck in there sometimes. But half of them are intakes and half of them are outtakes. What we should have done is drilled the fiberglass in the back and just had that as the intake and had all the closed loop as outtake, and we think we could have doubled the closed loop.
Gotcha.
That's one thing. And then the other thing is, because the way the reef is set up, the place where you would put external pumps on, like those big, I don't know if you've seen the biz pumps, those jet engines. You've seen them, right? And they come with that, and they come a smaller size. It's like semi-private jet pumps. And the only place to really put them out of sight is the back, on the back wall. And it doesn't do much blowing on the reef. It needs to be hit from the front or the sides.
Right.
So we're talking about building robotic arms that actually come down an hour or two a day and then go back up and blow stuff up. And we don't know how else to do it. Like, it's just no other way of doing it.
Just to kind of like flush them to try to soften the bottom?
Yeah. Now, we also have this surge valve system that goes on a few hours a day, but it takes from the other outtakes. So it's changing things up, but we think maybe that should have been a separate dedicated pump for those surge valves so it doesn't take away. That actually blows water on the reef from the back. And these are the things that, like, you think about now and you say, gee, maybe if I pulled all the fish, God forbid, I had to do that and lowered the water, and maybe you would do these things.
Yeah, where would you put the fish? I mean, do you have a swimming pool? Maybe you could empty the pool and put the fish in there in the summertime temporarily. And
I would use the 2500 upstairs, which is empty, and we would get it running for the time being, not automated. I would use the quarantine systems, and Jonathan's got like some pools in a warehouse also in Long Island.
Yeah.
And I've been offered by that would not be an issue. The issue is, could you pull them all without leaving some little silly sand goby or something in the tank and really have it fallow?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
It's really pretty mind blowing in terms of the all the different variables that you got going on there. I mean, I think about my reef tanks. I got a 187 gallon tank. I got a 225 gallon tank, and if I ever had to pull like water out of that tank and rock and all that stuff, I mean, I'd be stressing out big time. I can only imagine with 17,000 gallons. In terms of doing something like that, that would just be a job that would take a team of people
It's a couple of it would be several dives and several people, and nothing happens in a tank like this. Is like turning the Titanic. You can't, like, the iceberg's coming and you can't move. Okay, and so everything needs to be planned, and you know, we got backup plans for the backup plans, but still it would require a lot of hours, and we think it would take 2 weeks to maybe empty the coral and fish in this tank. And we may have to medicate the fish and like sedate them.
Right, that would be a lot of stress for the fish to go through. Folks, feel free to drop your questions in the chat here while we're talking with Andrew, and also we have almost 120 people watching live right now and only 32 likes. So if you're digging what you're watching, hit that like button so more people can find us on the live stream.
Hit that like
button. Smash that like button. Smash it. How big is your sump? How many gallons?
It can hold 2,500. We're running it at about 2,100. Once in a while, if we have a real power outage and it's a long period of time, I will have a little overflow into some of the French drains. and the reason why we do that is because we actually have a slight micro bubble issue right now. So if I ran the sump a little lower like it was supposed to, I get too many micro bubbles in the tank. So we run it a little higher. It's not a big deal. The generators kick in. It rarely happens, and if it does, it's a few hundred gallons of salt, and it's just like a little water change.
Oh my gosh! All right, we got some comments and some questions here in the chat. Bert Minshew, you need some underwater rhombas. Reefer Girl, hey Cindy.
Yeah, we're talking about cameras, underwater cameras, and that kind of stuff, 360s, and live streams.
Yeah, you don't have a live stream on that tank?
No, I was sort of waiting to get more coral. I've been sort of letting the Picasso sort of still coloring in the you know, with the paintbrush.
Yeah, you got to get.
I mean, I have 6 vats of coral ready to go that are now holding up until January. Like the amount of coral, and then assuming this parasite's fine and we're ready to go, the amount of coral in this tank will double by mid-January.
You're just kind of holding back in terms of the fish situation.
I got to know what I'm dealing with and whether this thing stabilizes, and so
makes total sense.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Why go add coral if I have to go take it out?
So Cindy Reef Girl is saying, I'm only doing 600 gallons, and there are still things I have no clue how I'm going to handle. DC Lee 1864 pound. Would one of the big water trough work to create flow when it fills? It dumps water in to create movement like the ones you see in the giant aquarium. So I guess some sort of surge device.
I don't have enough height. I don't have enough height above the tank to do it.
Oh, to have the.
You'd need like sort of a tower or something that, you know. Boom.
Right. Yeah. What's above the tank?
Lights and ceiling and
I mean, in terms outlets. Of the next level of the house, what do you got? You got living space up there, right?
My foyer or something.
Yeah.
Like
all right.
that,
Well,
upstairs.
Bust through the ceiling there, Andrew, and you just got a nice little surge device going through the foyer.
Well, you know, if we put a separate pump on those surges I talked about in the back, I could have the same thing basically. And they're on 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and it really flushes the corals out also. But again, it takes from somewhere else.
Andrew, it is obvious to me that you have a big passion for this hobby. I mean, is that an understatement that this is something that you're incredibly passionate about?
I've always been a, go big or go home guy. About everything I've done. Everything. Business, the intensity, very competitive. I take things personally. I, I have a, you know, this perfectionist personality. It's kind of a curse too, right? Because it makes you sort of not stop.
Yeah.
Right. So it got me to where I am today, but there are drawbacks.
It's true with reef keeping. It is like, you know, you've got that the all reef keepers I think have that kind of similar trait in terms of, you know, you have this vision, you want to kind of get the tank to us,
recreate something of nature. Yes.
Right. You want to have that awesome slice of the ocean in your house, and you've done that. I mean, you've done that. I mean, you look at that tank behind you, and it you know, it looks like you're on a dive out someplace. You know, and that's got to be an incredible thing to be able to see every single day that you walk by that thing.
When I look, Keith, when I look at the construction pictures and the videos now, and you can go to my YouTube, there's under construction, there's something called the Big Build. You know, we basically took the time lapse for 6 years, right? So it's not like I could video.
Yeah.
But there are pictures. When I look at those pictures now, if I wasn't at the age and the stage of life that I was in at that point, there was no way I would do it again. Zero chance. I look at it now, I think I was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it's you bit off a lot there.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know, I mean, I think just in terms of what you've created, it's probably a one of a kind in terms of a personal aquarium in a home. I mean, have you even you know, seen anything bigger, heard anything bigger in terms of an in-house aquarium?
I mean, Bill Wan's got 20,000.
Oh, he's got you beat then.
He does in a display, but I think I have 35 around the house. So I think I might be the number one in around with just the salt water. You know,
total volume.
Total gallons, yeah. No, there's nobody else. Nobody else tried this crazy thing. It'd be a lot easier to buy a painting and you know and put it up than this.
What about talk about the maintenance on this thing? So you've got help, right, in terms of the maintenance of the tank, and you've got people that actually go into that tank on a regular basis to dive, right, to perform maintenance. Talk to us about what you do, and just in terms of what goes involved in terms of maintenance of that tank.
So I have Yeltsin full time, and he's doing skimmers and reactors and carbons and scrubbing and cleans the glass with these huge magnets. By the way,
how thick is the glass?
The 4-inch acrylic.
4-inch acrylic.
And they're the Mighty Mag, I think number 13, and you definitely don't want to have your fingers trapped in between those. I actually got a pair stuck, and I called the company, and they told me to toss them.
Oh, really? You can't get them apart?
Nope.
Yikes.
No. So cleaning the glass is relatively easy, believe it or not. Like those magnets, just, you know, they move around pretty easy. We do it twice a week. Changing those cartridges in the pool filter every 4 or 5 days. Carbon, you know, once a month in the reactor. We also keep running passively in the sump. GFO, the GFO reactor is humongous. It's 7 feet tall. We use 10 buckets of Roaphos in it. And it opens with bolts that you need to, like, it's not the screw kind. You got to, like, use a tool and then get the stuff out and then re-rinse. And I don't know if you know what Roaphos looks like. It's pretty gross. And 10 buckets of it is even grosser. It takes 2 men a half a day to do GFO.
2 men a half a day. Wow.
We do drip lithium occasionally. We have a IV drip, basically, in the sump. But the bags get so clogged so fast, the 5-micron bags. we've tried to inject it into the pool filter and actually saw worse results. We actually had some tangs flip out of me. And I don't know if that's because it's under pressure as opposed to not pressure, but if I drip it, it works. What else? Maintenance. Water changes and backwash. It's a lot of computer work, but you know, the 5,000 gallon vat's got to be filled with RO. That takes half a day. It's huge 50-pound bags of sodium chloride and magnesium sulfate and a lot of liquid to dump in there. And then the rest is computerized up.
And who's managing the computer programming? Is that somebody you also have that handles that? Jonathan in conjunction with the code guy. Gotcha. Sounds like you've got like a whole mainframe computer just dedicated to that system.
When I open the cabinet, people think I'm mining Bitcoin.
What about testing? You know, water testing. Do you do ICP testing?
That's a sore subject.
Well,
I'm not going to get into it, but I actually own an ICP machine.
Oh, you do?
I do, but it's not hooked up yet. Missing some parts.
Missing some parts.
I am. And frankly, given the parasite outbreak, it's sort of the last of my concerns right now. We send out to Triton once a month anyway. Right. We dose. What am I dosing? So I'm dosing Reef Trace from CChem, and they calculate the amount I need. Okay. I can't do the Andre Moonshiner one at a time thing in a tank like this.
No.
So just can't do it. Bob makes me separate potassium and magnesium. And we do have to add that, particularly with the Kalk wash, so the magnesium gets drained a little bit.
Yep.
So we add maybe 5 gallons of magnesium every 2 weeks. And we send the ICP samples out, and frankly, everything has been good. I mean, there was some time in the beginning. We came back with some tin and some metals, and we found the source. It was actually in the pool filter. There was a metal band that was rusting a little bit. We changed it to titanium or stainless, and then we resorbed it, and it has not been the problem at all since. It's really just changing the GFO, doing the backwashes. It's sort of, you know, every inch I drop the tank is about 900 gallons to 1,000 gallons. So, you know, 4,000 is not that much. It's like just like this much.
What is a diver doing in that tank in terms of maintenance? What are they like, just trying to suck up detritus? Are they just tending?
But we blow rock.
Yep.
We blow, you know, with a pump, just basically blowing detritus. We fluff up the sand a little bit. She goes in to place corals.
Yeah, I'd imagine you need some awfully long arms to go in and put corals into that tank, right? So you need to go diving, unless you have some sort of long tongs you could use to put in there.
No. It needs to be dive, and somebody has to be on the outside of the tank guiding her because she doesn't have the same visibility as we have. So we have hand signals, you know, rotate this. You know, we basically have all these hand signals. We talk about where each piece is going to roughly go beforehand, and then she glues it down and leaves, and then usually a day or two later something falls.
You got to get the diver back.
Yeah, you do. Unless you can, you know, we have hooks, and we have big poles with hooks and nets we could sometimes scoop up without.
Have you ever gone diving in that tank?
So the answer is everybody else has been in this tank besides me, including my kids and my wife. And the reason is I'm working all day and somebody needs to direct while they're in. And now with the coral, I see what Michelle does. She's a little girl. She's jumping around, is much more agile. I would be knocking corals now. So it's a lot of jumping around without knocking corals down.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine.
And like I told you, I want to be the sideline coach. I'm done. The athlete days are done.
You're the one calling in the plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Directing the team.
I'll never get another hand infection, and I won't have a broken back with a ladder.
Oh, that happened?
Oh, not broken, but disc surgery. Yeah.
Ooh, ouch. Just looking at some more of the comments here and questions. Andrew, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I did have a couple more questions for you. And folks, if you want to drop some questions again in the chat, please do so. What so in terms of the equipment, right? It's a whole different ball game for you because this is really this is not a hobby grade type of setup. This is like a commercial
industrial grade stuff.
Industrial.
Like when I go to the shows and Mac whatever, there's 0.0 that applies to me.
I'd imagine. How do you keep on top of like the new technology stuff that might apply to your setup? I mean, is that something that you lean on your experts and your consultants?
Yeah.
To kind of guide you on.
Yeah, I mean, good relationship with MRCs. Good, yes, and we're friendly with the public aquarium people that give us advice.
What kind of big things have you guys learned from the public aquariums that really were very helpful?
Well, I mean, these lights that we're using, the Maxspect commercials, Joe tested them on his system first, and he had halide, and his corals grew great with them. So we knew they worked. That's probably a huge one right there.
Wow.
The lighting system. In fact, we like the lights so much and what they're doing to the corals that we're we made a decision to use them up at the 2,500 upstairs, but just run them at 20-30%.
Wow.
Instead of 100, and so we have interchangeable parts and have redundancy. I don't need different lightings. I want to be able to move things around. Something breaks, take from here and there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it almost sounds like that's maybe possibly the way that other public aquariums should be going in terms of that lighting setup, and not have to worry about metal halide technology.
Yeah, I mean, the metal halides work, and there's probably nothing prettier than a radium 20K bulb. Like it's spectacular, as you know, but. You could create glitter lines with Kessel. Like there's other ways around it now. And in this case, we really had no choice. We didn't have the clearance.
In terms of the corals, Andrew, you're Bert Minshew made a kind of a funny comment, I think. Put an SPS frag in there and you will need a full-size telescope to find it. No video with iPhone. I'm assuming that you're not really going to be putting a lot of frags in a tank like that. That you're really trying to put maricultured or wild colonies into that tank, right?
So Keith, you've done several. I watched them last night, so I know you've done several guys, Sanjay and Jake, particular, the old school guys that like I don't get this little stick thing. I don't get it. And because everybody else is into it, I am being offered more tank breakdowns and huge colonies than I ever imagined.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like, literally, I get people, Eric Charland and Jason, they're like, you can't believe what I just saw. And I haven't ordered one piece of custom yet.
Because you're getting...
That's crazy. The growers... They want to make room for a little name, whatever. You had the videos on it. It's worked to my benefit. I'll take the huge piece of Monty's and big pieces of Stylos any day. And in this tank, that's all I want.
Well, I got a
couple of large colonies. Let them go.
I got a giant tub Stiletto Monty you got to have if you want.
I love taking Monties. I know my butterflies don't eat them.
There you go. They're not munching on them. Are you how are you worried about pests? You know, hitchhiking like acro eating flatworms. I mean, that's something that's very, very difficult to prevent when you're bringing in colonies. You know, obviously you've got a Coral QT system, so you can watch stuff.
We dip, and we set up a cleaning station, one of my vats, with a bunch of Melanaris and copper bands and Kleins. And so we have the ability to go fishless. And I quarantine those fish, so I know they're good.
Yeah.
We have the ability to go there first or go there second and then go fishless. It's something we're going to do more of. We see Aptasia, burn it off. If I'm suspect, I have a 40-gallon little thing with a bunch of peppermint shrimp in it. We can put the coral in. So we're trying, but yeah, it's not.
I mean, Sanjay, said it. I don't think it might not have been on the last live stream he was on. It might have been the one before. It's like, you know what? You're going to get pests, and there's certain types of pests that you could just live with. You know, he was talking about how he's got acro-eating flatworms, and sometimes you'll see it pop up on a colony here or there, and so I think it's a reality. You know, obviously you can prevent that sort of thing from getting into a much smaller system, but when you've got like a large system, or if you're just putting frags in and you're dipping, sometimes the eggs will get by and you won't see it.
Some of these pieces come on huge boulders, and there might be a little Aptasia in the boulder, like in some nook.
I mean, on a system like yours, you're relying basically on natural predators to try to manage problems. You're not really going to be sitting there with the Aptasia, thing, and have your diver going around and zapping Aptasia.
We try to do it in the vat when we see it. I mean, we do, but it's not something that like I worry more about fish parasites.
Right.
At this moment, and something really bad like Urimia or velvet, like that keeps me up at night.
Yeah, no, you've got a prized fish collection.
Right.
Have you had to deal with any like ugly phases with that tank? You said the tank's 2 years old. I mean, any cyano or something?
We did, because this is a long story, but I had a party for my high school reunion. The party planners said, you got to get fish in it. We rushed it. I knew that the fish weren't fully all quarantined. My quarantine system wasn't even up and ready yet. So I took whatever I could get, and I knew there was a good chance 30 days later I was going to get hit with something. I did. Chloroquine phosphate the display tank in 30 days. Then I went hypo, killed the algae for a long time. Then with the diatom filter, sometimes you get silicates from the diatom powder getting in the water. So we went through an ugly brown stage until you get all the urchins in there. And it seems to be just now we're growing big coralline spots around. Just now.
Well, yeah. That's so sometimes you go through those kind of phases with the certain tank, but I would imagine a tank that size, that it can be just super tough to try to get through a situation. If you've got cyano and you're going to try to use some chemicals to get rid of it and whatnot. I mean, that's
we just blow it. We get in there and just literally take one of those humongous jet engines and in a pool. What do you call it? Pool hose, and just Michelle gets in there. Just
manual removal is one of the most important ways to get rid of stuff like that. So
and we change the diatom filters and the cartridges before she does those dives, and a day or two after to remove it, all that stuff, and so it's gone, and backwash the sand filter 24 hours after those dives too.
Did you ever have dinos on that tank?
Yeah,
Maybe.
some brown stuff. I don't know whether it was dinos or yeah, of course.
Yeah, everybody seems to have that these days.
Especially with the dead Marco Rock.
Yeah.
Especially with that. Especially with me losing the algae twice already before. I mean, I went through 6 months where I was medicating and hypoing, and you lose it, and then it goes back again, and then it turns brown first again. So yeah, I mean, and then you see pictures, old videos, and you're like, I can't believe how brown the rock was.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of rock. 20,000 pounds, you said? What did you guys do to cycle that tank?
Ammonia chloride.
Ammonia chloride? And how long did it take to cycle?
Well, the first time it was interrupted by a leak. I told you, I mean, we were basically done. And then we started to see water spew out and had the manufacturer come back and literally strip the tank, re-sand, re-silicone, and repaint.
Oh my gosh.
That was a 4 month setback. But I don't know, the cycle, it wasn't longer than average, a month. You know, the ammonia was fast, and the trite took a little bit of some patience.
321 Reefer is asking, did you use any bacteria to seed the tank?
Did we? I think we did. We threw some stuff in there. Yeah, we threw some stuff in there.
Yeah. Scotty Damron makes a very nice comment here. Tell Andrew his transparency and passion for reefing is intoxicating and is something I wish more of us reefers would indulge in.
Thank you. And I love sharing with the hobby, and whether I put a smile on your face or an inspiration or you learn, one of those three things is my goal.
Well, I think you've definitely delivered on those tonight, Andrew.
Thank you.
What so I'm not gonna ask you what kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to start a tank like that, because that's just not gonna be too feasible for anybody else out there. But you do have other tanks in the house. You just talked about a few times about the 2,500 gallon tank you're going to be starting. So you're into the larger tanks. Let's say the 500 gallon to 1,000, 1,500 gallon.
I mean, I have two cubes that are 200 each that deal with rare small fish, and they're connected, and the sump's 200 gallons. So, I mean, the system is 600. That's my smallest.
So,
but they're my nanos.
Yeah, your nano tanks. So obviously, you know what you're doing in terms of reef keeping, or else you wouldn't be in the position you're in right now in terms of managing all these tanks. What kind of advice do you have for people that kind of want to not get into the hobby, but kind of take it to the next level to achieve that success?
There's so much information now on the net, and you know how many hours I used to cruise through threads on Reef Central and in those days, and not just the questions, like the answers, and why. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of free time reading, and calling on experts. I mean, I call fish vets all the time. Learned a few tricks from a few fish vets on antibiotics that have really come in great. The Cipro bath is a wonderful thing that I got from a fish vet. 75% of the Cipro gets absorbed in the body right through the gut while they're in the 2 hours. It's tips like that, and asking questions, and people ask me the questions, and I don't mind, except when the markets are going crazy and it's between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and I'm getting messengers like, "What's on my fish?" And then I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my god."
That yeah, you gotta have some times kind of set aside for the fish stuff and for business stuff and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Well, Louise makes videos. Can I come get scuba certified in Andrew's tanks? Laugh out loud.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is you can't, because there's no buoyancy issue. We go in with a hose. the tank's on top. And so you just get weighed down and you just drop right to the bottom.
All right, sorry about that, Luis. That's not going to be happening.
Right.
But one last question for you there, Andrew. Any we were talking about Paletta and Sanjay and folks like that early on in your reef keeping career.
Yeah.
Any of those kind of folks inspired you to you know?
All of them. If I told you, I don't know if I tell Sanjay this all the time, like how many light charts I memorized on the halide bulbs on which spectrum from his days when he was posting in Manhattan Reefs and you know which bulb did what and mixing. We would mix 10s and 20s and whatever.
I still have that webpage bookmarked.
You do,
yeah,
huh?
I do.
When it went LED, I stopped. All of a sudden, it became like little targets instead of graphs. I don't understand it anymore. All those guys. I used to Reef Central Tank of the Month. I used to go through them all.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? And which ones are different? And what's similarities? And I think you had this conversation with one of the guys, and like there's a standard thing that people do, and then there's like different things that people do. But at the end of the day, you got to get the 75% right.
Yeah.
And then people tweak with the other 25%.
Yeah.
Trace elements, this, that. You know, the ICP is an interesting thing. This new aquabiotic DNA thing.
Yeah. Have you tried that out yet? The aquabiomics.
I was going to, and I was afraid of chasing ghosts. and I assume now I know it's going to show up anyway. So why bother?
It's
something comes back like a fossil of some thing, and you're like, oh, okay, what am I going to do about it? I don't see anything. So I was a little afraid, and I went through this with when Triton came out, and Ishan, you know, that whole thing started. I actually tested all the salts. All.
Oh, you did?
All on the ICP.
To see where their baselines were?
Yeah, and you know, I was looking for things like heavy metal. I wasn't looking for, okay, yeah, I know which ones had calcium. The calcium and mags and the big three were already known, but I was looking for other things. Yeah. And one of the things that I caught was this lithium elevation that a lot of these salts had. And it was basically contaminated magnesium chloride or something that, you know, something was giving lithium in the water. And it turns out that trying to go after that and chasing those numbers down actually did more harm than good. So I'm a little afraid on the DNA stuff.
Yeah, Eli sent me a couple of tests. He's the guy that owns Aquabiomics, Dr. Eli Meyer, and I got a couple of tests.
Yep.
And it's you know, definitely the results were interesting, and I'm going to try to do a video in terms of my specific results. But it seemed like you know, I had a good. I had a good balance of bacteria, but I was definitely in terms of the variety. I think I was missing a specific one that gets zapped by UV. And,
right.
And you know, so
it's understandable. I mean, I guess it was Mike that you did that interview with. That what was he talking about? He was talking about
I think the Vibrio
bacterias, and you know, and different kinds, and the Vibrio.
Yeah, the Vibrio.
And SDN and RTN, and I've experimented with antibiotics on corals, with the same results as him. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sanjay was skeptical of that sort of thing. He was like, you know,
it's a little skeptical. It depends on when you catch it. It depends on a zillion things. I mean, there's a zillion factors. Julian, I was talking to Julian one time, and he actually identified protozoan also in there. And you don't know which came first, the bacteria or the protozoan. So that's another issue on the corals. And I do have the ability, I will have the ability to really test this thing out. Somebody came to me and said, after this thing was done, let's go do an STN, RTN test with some different antibiotics. I'll have the ability to do it.
That's pretty cool.
And I have more antibiotics. You can't believe what I have.
You're
a pharmacy here, kilos and kilos of doxy, erythro, cipros, and crazy stuff. Bait injections.
Well, I guess if the fish hospitals or whatnot are full, then they can be knocking on your door.
The fish hospitals are easier than the coral hospital.
Oh yeah.
I think they understand. The fish hospital is. I think they got the fish science down relatively good. The coral research needs a lot more in this hobby. There's too many people that just get wiped out and they all bleach out. And,
I agree. I mean, there's
out of nowhere, and you can ruin a whole tank and ruin a hobby.
Yeah, there are a lot of unknowns. I mean, the STN and the RTN events, there's just a lot of mystery there. I think there also needs to be a lot more research done in terms of tank pests, the acro-eating flatworm. It's kind of hard to believe that we haven't figured out a way to kill the eggs at this point in time. But you know, hey, I guess there are other things in the world in terms of what science needs to be focused on versus you know, helping us out in this hobby.
They can't figure out the bleaching in the natural ocean. What are they going to figure out here?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, stability, alg spikes. Everybody knows what is definite, and then there's the non-definite. Flow as the pieces get bigger, then the bottom sort of gets shaded. I've seen that 100 times.
You got to be resilient as a reef keeper. You really do. You know, because you go through some mood swings, right? If the tank is looking great, then you're feeling great. But if things are kind of going wrong, then maybe you're not getting as much sleep as you normally do.
The amount of humility you need in this hobby is huge, because things go wrong fast.
Yes, they do. Scotty Damron, please tell Andrew we're grateful he took the time to be the host in such an amazing Rappin with ReefBum show.
My pleasure.
Andrew, anything else you wanted to say as we wrap it up? Any final words?
No, I'm gonna keep plugging away and keep sharing with you guys, and you know, I'm going through an experience here with you. This is something that the industrial stuff and doing this is I never done it before. The biggest system. What was the other system we ran? 1,200 gallons, 1,300 before this. Yeah, I mean, so this is new to me, and I'm still learning, and I'm trying to get a bigger rudder on the Titanic so I can make some faster turns, which is an issue. But it's my pleasure to share with the hobby, and again, I'll take a smile, I'll take an inspiration, and I'll take I learn from you. Any of the three, if it's on my gravestone, if those three things are on, I'm very happy.
Those are some great words. I'm gonna end it with one comment that I think I'll put a smile on your face in the chat here. Johnny E, I want a stock pick so I can build a 17,000 gallon tank. You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer that question.
I'm doing a significantly more shorting than I am buying stocks right now. I think this market is a casino. I think there are things going on at the retail level, and I don't really want to get into it. But you know who you are, whether you're AMC apes or your crypto guys. There's a greed factor that's insane. Household wealth in the market as a percentage of assets is at 1929 levels right now. There are things that are very bothersome, and I think the more exciting thing is shorting, but I don't recommend it for people that don't have experience. I think there's a lot of things that are going to get cut in half in the next year and a half.
You didn't have to answer that question, but
I did.
You
because
did.
I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, it shows, and I appreciate the candor, and I think everybody else is taking some notes right now, and yeah, don't do it unless you have experience doing it, though, right?
Yeah.
All right, so folks can find Andrew also on YouTube. You've got your own YouTube channel called Andrew Sandler, right? And you're
I do.
You're also on Instagram as the username is
Andrew_Sandler.2, yeah.
And Andrew.Sandler2.
Yeah, too. And I'm not sure why the Instagram grows so much faster than the other ones. Like, to me, it's the least informative. But I guess people like to just go like, and they don't want to watch long videos. But then my YouTube people say longer videos, please. So I'm not sure exactly why these things happen.
And you got to check out Andrew's YouTube channel, because I think every now and then you put just like a video with an awesome like classic rock song behind it, and so you can rock out watching the
once a week.
Once a week
On Fridays. And my biggest concern on that is
copyright.
I think I've done this 2 years, 2 or 3 songs a week. I think I may have gone through the best songs of all time already, and I'm worried about I have to repeat. and by the way, I stay up long nights looking for songs. I go through the Billboard charts of the 70s and the 80s, and you know what I'm missing, and that's a whole nother thing.
That's a must-see Reef TV right there. And I want to thank Rashid from Stories Reef for that super chat. Very generous, man. The comment is that ReefBum Keith, great stuff, man. Thank you for continuing to bring all of these great guests. This is a priceless for us to all continue to learn from, and we appreciate that. And Rashid, thank you so much again for the help in terms of the video clips. Check out Rashid Stories Reef on YouTube as well as on Instagram. He's got an awesome tank himself there that you could follow.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Rashid. Really appreciate that. All right, folks, so that's going to do it for this show. I want to give my sincere thanks to Andrew for being a guest on today's live stream.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
Appreciate it. It was really very enjoyable.
Yep. And I also want to thank the sponsors, Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine, for supporting the show, and for all you folks tuning in and watching. You, if you have any more questions for Andrew, you could always reach out to his social media channels.
Yeah. Messenger me, whatever.
Messenger
just
him.
Not between 3 and 4 when the Fed is speaking.
Yeah. Also, the all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. My next live stream, I'm taking next week off. The next live stream is going to be Thursday, December 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with my buddy Chris Meckley from ACI Aquaculture. Should be another great show. Please tune in. Andrew, take it easy, man. And
thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.